distinguished members of the faculty, previous mentorship graduates, notional ed, and other distinguished trader nerds, welcome to the graduation ceremony of Candy, aka To the Beach. You may be seated. Will our chaplain, will our chaplain Rick please lead us in the what's it called? The first prayer. What do you call that? It's not the benediction. That's where you leave. What's the one where you lead us in the? Oh heck, what is it? I knew I should have made some prepared notes. Okay, so Rick's not going to lead us in the opening prayer. Okay, that's fine. No big deal. Anyway, welcome in, y'all. We're gonna have fun today. So we have with us Candy, who just a couple weeks ago signed up for the for mentorship. Now, a lot of you will probably go, "Oh my gosh, why did Candy need a mentorship?" when you hear her story. But let me tell you something. I've told her and Ed both, right? It's kind of funny that I have offered to teach people, constantly, and nobody finishes. Nobody finishes. And I'm like, what am I doing wrong? I must be doing something wrong. So Ed was the first person that was ever committed enough to go through, can y'all believe, 11 weeks? We're going to do 12, but Ed was a special case, and he was an advanced student, and he finished everything in 11 weeks. Candy was even more advanced than Ed, pardon Ed, but Candy finished the entire thing in 6 weeks. So she did really, really, really good. Invocation. Thank you, John. And Rick didn't even jump in to say, "Oh, I'll save you, Bobby. Here's the opening prayer." He didn't do it. That's fine. I'll see how you're doing. Hold on a second. What,
Miss Edwards called. She said, "Can you please take a post off? They're slandering the teacher's name at the school."
Okay, take it off.
I can't.
Go to my phone. It's down there. Beth, you interrupt our graduation.
Sorry.
You can't, honey, you can't interrupt the graduation ceremony. Beth, get downstairs into your pool and leave me alone. All right. Yeah, she's got an incredible background. So, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, let me shut up and we will turn the floor over to Candy. Hello, Candy.
Good afternoon, everyone, and greetings. Good afternoon, Bobby, and thank you for this great ceremony and event. It's exciting to be a part of it.
I apologize that Rick let us down on the invocation.
Well, that's quite all right. Just happy to be here and happy to be achieving graduation.
Absolutely. And you worked hard. Now, y'all listen to this. So, Candy, first of all, before we get into your trading background and all that, give us a little idea of who this Candy to the Beach person is. Who are you?
So my background is in sales and sales management, in franchise business ownership, income property management and ownership, and investing and trading. The most recently, the last 4 years, I spent developing content and teaching for another company that I started learning from back in 2008 when I got started on my trading adventure. And I stepped away from teaching with them in about February of this year due to a loss in my family. And I was a part of a different group that was Mr. Top Tick, Income Navigator. And I happened to see a message from Captain D about this Trader Nerds Discord group and how he really wasn't being very active anywhere else except for this one group. Because in this group, everybody really worked together to learn from each other and help and teach each other. And so that's what kind of brought me into, well, I'm like, well, I saw Bobby's rising star at Tasty Trade, and I'm like, well, I'll go ahead and give it a try. So I think I've been in the group for about 3 months now.
Yeah. So, and we're honored to have you. And so the cool thing about Candy is the unfortunate part of anyone that goes through the mentorship is they first have to talk to somebody that has gone through the mentorship. And so unfortunately, we had to turn her loose on Ed since he was the only person to ever go through the mentorship. So how did that conversation go with you and Ed? What was he telling you about the internship and all of that? How'd that go?
Well, we were going to be having the conversation over two different phone calls, because the first one was, focused at kind of getting to know the organization and a little bit about Bobby, and Ed wanted to reinforce the importance of the learning and the commitment that's needed to be in the group. So that was where we were going. And then we were going to have a follow-up conversation, but I had already seen and heard enough to know that I wanted to jump in with both feet.
Okay, so you and I had an initial meeting, and then we had an initial homework and all of that, and you had a lot of homework through the entire process. But the great thing is it wasn't just Candy learning. As I said, when Ed went through the program, I actually learned from the people who go through the mentorship as well. So it was a really cool experience. So just kind of talk to us about, I mean, you already knew everything really about options. I mean, as far as options and trading and execution and having accounts, I mean, you were already well versed. Tell us what you were doing trading wise before you kind of came to us.
Well, and let me put something even just a little bit before that is back in 2009, I attended a course called The Wall. It was conducted in Chicago, and I believe it was put on by Thinkorswim at the time. And it gave me the introduction, and I was so early in my options career. I primarily trade options, but I was so early in my career, but they showed how you could manage a whole portfolio just through the Greeks. And I was very interested in that concept. And I had been searching for 13 years to find anybody who could teach me how to do that. I had found two educators that taught it. They never were able to teach it profitably, and they were never able to teach it from a consistent system. And so I have been in search for Bobby since 2009. So when I saw him, that's when I really got excited to think that that part of my desire of something that I couldn't fulfill and commit to was possibly in my future, because I primarily in my past was both an income trader and swing trader. When the war started and things became volatile and the bear market came, I was primarily moving my money in and out of the market on a daily basis to protect it. So I was trading, for the last year, I was trading 0 DTE and oil and gold and bonds using short strangles. So everything was very short term. A week for me was a long time in these markets. And I saw and was kind of introduced to the 111, 112 trade. I had no idea what it was or how to trade it, but I wanted to learn how to manage from a portfolio and how to leverage that trade. And I needed a safety net while I was learning. So when I heard Bobby was offering, the opportunity to learn from him on a one-on-one, I wanted to take advantage of that opportunity.
So you were doing 0 DTE. Tell everybody about 0 DTE. It's just great when it's working and everything's going good, and you had success. I mean, there's no doubt you had success.
So when it started, it went to 3 days a week first, and that was prior to the bear market, when it was just a standard trade. It was just a standard market, standard trade, did very well. That went on for 6-8 months, had, great consistent setups. It, performed consistently, usually within ranges day after day. And then when the war hit, the whole market, the way the market was structured has changed. You know, we used to primarily live in 1 standard deviation moves each week. Now we're in, you know, mostly 2 standard deviation moves. So we're in markets that are faster, more exaggerated. You have more gamma squeezes to the upside and the downside. And when you're trading larger portions of capital in fast markets in a short-term trade, you just really have to be really tight on your trading and your mechanics and your risk management because things can turn on you very quickly and you need to be prepared. So I was living out on the edge of risk and managing it, but still it's a higher stress level. It is a faster reaction. It is higher risk. And so what Bobby helped me do is shift my risk. I still have risk because I primarily, since I started trading and why I went into options was I never trusted my money in the markets for very long and would be a short-term trader, never committed to stocks or stock ownership because I didn't really believe in the way the Fed, the central banks were managing the markets or the money. I didn't really feel like we had true markets. And so I felt they were rather, you know, if you couldn't really understand the mechanics and the thought process of how they work, it was never really a great investment for me. So I found other ways to take the money and make money off it, but keep the money safe at the same time.
So what, kind of tell everybody, I mean, you told us a little bit about, you know, some training in Chicago and everything. Kind of tell us we all have a migration story, right? We start out with, you know, I started out with Tom and Tony at Tasty Trade, then we go to Theo Trade. Kind of tell us some of the areas that you.
My journey.
Yeah, your journey. Tell us about that
Yeah.
journey.
So I started as an InvestTools PhD like Karen the super trader. So we had very similar starts, I think very similar time frames, very similar backgrounds in the beginning. And then I migrated deeper into when Tom Sosnoff was very involved in Thinkorswim and doing education there. They had income trading that they taught and the wall they called it, but high probability trading was something. So I stuck around with InvestTools at for a long time. And then I also went and started working and learning from Simpler Trading. And that's the company that I have stayed with since the beginning. Where else have I gone? I've had journeys down shorter roads. Trying to think of anybody else that really, I've always kept my feet in both swing trading and income trading, but nobody really other than that stands out to me of where I focused on.
So I was kind of curious, how did you find the Rising Star video? How'd that pop up?
I think I saw a conversation going on about it in the Income Navigator site. Probably Tom King might have mentioned something about it. And so I went out and took a look at it then.
Okay, good. So we start the mentorship. And really, you know, a lot of people say, I don't want to do a mentorship on 112. I'm not interested in the 112 or the 111 or, you know, whatever trade. And the cool thing is I never boxed you in, did I?
You know, the last 6 weeks, the mentorship has been one of the highest quality learning opportunities that I've had in my trading career. And I've stayed learning since day one. I think learning and always updating, expanding, you know, staying abreast of the markets is really important. But working with Bobby for me is like right up there, right at the top. And the learning was totally customized for me and what I wanted to accomplish. And the learning was all encompassing. It was a holistic approach, including my mindset, my emotions, and trade setups. When I started, I wanted to learn how to use the spreadsheet and develop a trading plan to support how to manage my account at a portfolio level. And the fun was when I started, my first account that I took was in 100% cash. So we were able to build a system from the ground up, and it was customized to what I wanted to trade and how I wanted to trade it. But during my mentorship, what I learned how to shift my thinking from swing trading to income trading. Instead of looking at a chart and trying to catch the swings, I started trading from a spreadsheet and capturing theta, learning the risk management necessary to manage a portfolio that's in a campaign mode, because I was moving my money in and out every day. So to leave it out there, thinking about a longer duration time frame, took a little bit of a shift in my mindset. And then how to think about the portfolio management versus looking, so you can push a lot more capital into the market when you're at a portfolio level, versus I could never manage that many individual trades from a directional standpoint. It would just be way too much. So I started to feel like the more we got into it, the longer the more I learned. I wanted to learn the 112 because I was looking for that one unique trade, just one good trade. And I wanted to take that and make a system out of it. And so I started to feel like a kid during the holidays, that Santa had just been at my house and dropped off a bunch of gifts. And then when I looked, they all had my name on it. So the more I got to see the performance of the system, how they work together, the more excited I was. And so I've brought a trading approach and trading plans to 4 accounts during that time. I saw that Bobby wasn't afraid of a challenge. He accepted working with me. I can sometimes be, active and challenge because I like to learn. But I didn't scare him off. So I was like, well, Bobby, I've got these other accounts. What about those? Can we work on those too? And so I was excited to jump in and build out systems to all 4 of my accounts.
Yeah, and so we won't talk about account sizes, but Candy does have, a substantial number of, well, you've got a substantial number of dollars to work with in the 4 different accounts. And each one of them kind of has their own personality, right? You've got an IRA in there. Kind of tell us just about the nature of this. Is an IRA. How many IRAs, how many margin accounts?
I have 2 IRAs and 2 margin accounts, portfolio margins.
So, she's talking really good about the mentorship and all that, but listen, not all was unicorns and rainbows. So if in the growth process, it is sometimes uncomfortable. So talk to us about some of the uncomfortable moments in your journey over the 6 weeks.
I think I had one primarily. Now maybe
I remember you were
more.
screaming, right? You probably screaming at your husband. You were screaming at yourself. Remember that one? You're like, Bobby, I'm screaming. We got to get this worked out.
It was a fun, it was very, that's when a lot of light bulbs came on for me, was the change and the shift that needed to take place from trading swings on a chart, short-term immediate swings on a chart, the speed of that, to trading an income trade where you're catching theta. It's like catching butterflies instead of fast movements, fast thrusts. And so at one point I was learning the metrics of the portfolio, and the spreadsheet just was saying, no adjustments. And I'm like, well, wait a minute. Tomorrow there's going to be a economic report, and there's going to be this, and there's going to be that. And I had all these things running through my mind about feeling like I needed to start getting defensive and protecting my portfolio. And I started thinking through, well, normally what I do is, I'll start playing on both sides, start maybe trading some calls on call credit spreads on the upside, just to, give a little buoyancy and start hedging my bet. And I had watched my mentor successfully trade trade a similar trade. So I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to try that and add a little more. And so my accounts were just going gangbusters. They were in October. They were moving up, you know, very nicely. And all of a sudden, my accounts started to bog down, slow down, and they were like grinding gears going up a very steep mountain. And I'm like, oh yeah, I've over adjusted my account. And that was the day when the market goes up 5% in a day, certainly to the upside. And it's like, yep, that taught me a lesson that I will probably always remember. And so learning that calls and short calls are not necessarily my friend in this type of a system. And at one point I told Bobby, they're dead to me, and they were removed from my trading plan. But I have to say, yesterday, I had a similar situation where I was, you know, close to the full allocation, wanted to keep generating positive theta. And I just modeled a call credit spread. And the thing started to go against me. I'm like, what in the heck is going on with the market? And I looked over, and here the thing had one large green candle, like it was telling me, get out, get out. I'm like, sure enough, if you want the markets to go up, I'll just start modeling call credit spreads, and that'll do it. So that was a learning opportunity that I had to assimilate, see the results of, realize that the trade structures as they are already have a lot of buoyancy to them on the upside and downside. So I'm working with how to get the mix right in the accounts, but they're all back on track, and they're all working towards all-time highs. So I feel like it was a great learning experience. But, you know, Bobby is always so patient, not critical. He'll press you when you need to be pressed. He'll leave you alone when, you know, he thinks you've got, you know, you're on the right track. He'll reinforce where you're on track. He'll, you know, give you information and data when you're off track, and kind of let you figure it out for yourself. So he's an amazing teacher.
Well, the thing is, I told Candy this is kind of funny, right? So she's made a good bit of money since we started the mentorship, right? So she's done really well, but she's probably not made as much if she had not gone through the mentorship. This lady was kind of a gunslinger, right? I mean, Katie, you were a gunslinger, and you know, you were doing the 0 DTAs and all that. So I probably throttled you down. But here's the thing, y'all. I think Candy would say that it was probably one of the best things to ever happen in her trading.
Oh yeah, totally.
Throttled down. Tell us, explain what I'm talking about.
Yeah, so now I get to talk to my husband during the day. I get to get up and walk around. I actually get to have lunch. I could even exercise during the day if I wanted to. I have total freedom over, you know, I have my routine. I'm measuring everything. You know, I built my whole trading plan, business plan, and trading plans around the concept. What I learned was I can shift my mind to the new concepts faster by creating a story. And that, and turning off my P&L. I totally turned off my P&L, didn't look at it the whole time. I looked at it through the lens of the spreadsheet, but not like I was trying to drive the P&L. So my whole concept was around cars. And so every morning I measure my oil, my gas, my water, and my car to make sure. So the whole, it's a story, it's a fun story, but that helped me shift faster, where I wasn't afraid to implement the concepts, because it made total sense to me that it was part of my story. It was part of what I needed to do to be a theta driver or a mechanic. I had two roles, and I had fun playing with those, and that allowed me to make those shifts even faster.
So the cool thing is she's a visual learner, right? So like where I talk about forest and trees, she talked about the garden a little bit, but then she finally settled on, hey, my portfolio is a classic car theta driver, right? Mm-hmm. That's kind of how you visualize it. So her theta is her gas in the tank. It's really cool, right? So she knows, like, if I start going off the road, I mean, she would compare the whole thing really in beautiful terms that made really a lot of sense. So, and this is something that I think any of us could do, right? It's forest trees for me. It may be cars, garage, roads for you, garden for some of you, but whatever it is, find something that you're interested in and relay your account, your portfolio to that so that you can then manage the entire thing and the individual pieces.
But Bobby, to get back to, so my income, this is, I think, a really important shift for me and for anybody else that would like to take their trading to a new level. So what I was doing was taking, capital and moving it in the markets, on short term. Well, what that forced me to do from a risk perspective is take less of my available capital. And it pushed me out on the risk spectrum because I have, I live off of my income for trading. So it's not just a little pastime for me. It's something that I take very seriously. But as I tried to fit and realign my accounts into different alignments of maybe trying to get all of my commodity trading into one account, Bobby's eyes used to get really big because he'd see all the theta that those trades would generate, and they're huge, but they also push you way out on the buying power. So I wasn't able to really comfortably reconstruct what I was doing. So the spreadsheet helped show me when the risk wasn't, worth the reward. And so I kept dialing down my risk, but I kept expanding my capital. And so there's a sweet spot and a trade-off where I can push more capital in the money now, into the markets, but my returns grow significantly. But I've dialed down my risk. I've dialed down my management. I've implemented protection. I have better control. I get to go, at a comfortable pace for my car instead of like an Indy car, where the turns and everything's rougher and faster and, you're getting bumped around by other cars. And now I get to ride down the center lane in a very comfortable classic car and enjoy myself and enjoy my life. And so I feel like I've been given the keys to the kingdom.
One of the things that was cool with Candy is we did personalize the spreadsheet for her too. So she said, Bobby, I'm not comfortable with this. Let's make this change. And then you brought in some other metrics or one other metric that you wanted to focus on. And what was so funny, she says, oh, I've always kept up with this. And I'm like, you won't believe this, but it's already in the spreadsheet. It's just in a hidden column. So tell us about, you didn't go, I'm just going to blindly follow Bobby's metrics. I'm going to kind of bring in my own things and make some adjustments to those metrics.
Well, when you manage through the Greeks, which I was doing, but only at a trade level, and I would keep my deltas, dialed down, but I'd try to always keep my theta, revved up. So when you shift from a trade level to a portfolio level, all of a sudden you've got a lot of deltas that you're working with. And when I went to protect my account intuitively, when the spreadsheet was just saying nothing, it was just like, speeding along. It was a lot more deltas than I was used to because I was looking at the total portfolio and thought I needed to protect it when it was just happy and printing money. I said, I kind of need a delta to theta ratio that I kind of know when I can let it hang out there or when I need to dial it back a little bit. And so Bobby uncovered the column for me that was there. So I can see when my car is centered, regardless of how many deltas I have at a portfolio level. So it gave me a comfort level that if I just keep the car centered going down the middle of the road, I don't really need to worry about the fluctuation in the account. Now realize that I have immature accounts that have not solidified all the value of the 111 or 112 trades yet. They're not mature yet. So they're still developing. So it was during, a couple jiggles in the market that I was like, whoa, what do I need to do here? I would have been, making short-term moves to protect and take advantage of opportunities that I didn't need to do anything on. So now I have metrics that I was taught previously that give me comfort, that allow me to transition into Bobby's metrics, where I know when my car is fine, or I know when it's getting too close to the edge of the road.
And I'm glad that we did a 6-week, we're really going to start out, doing a 4-week thing, but I'm glad we did 6 weeks, because it took you about 5 to 6 weeks before you had enough gas in the engine, right, to build them up.
Yeah.
And y'all, what was kind of fun too, right, is as we started, Candy was comfortable doing the micro e-meeting, right? So /MES. And so as that went up, she goes, I can't get enough fuel in the gas. So then she go to 2 or 3 contracts. And then before you know it, she's slinging out e-mini contracts like it's nothing.
But he never pushed me, but I'm like, yeah, this is just not going fast enough for me.
We're never going to get here if we're just doing the macros, right? So that was really good. And here's the great thing too. I'm glad that we did the 6 week instead of 4 weeks, is because even yesterday, kind of tell us about the bump in the road yesterday. There was red on your screen.
Oh, this was great.
Yeah, this is
great.
great.
This is a great learning. I grew up in kind of a disciplined house, and a rule is a rule. If you were given a rule, you're going to follow the rule. And so I understood the buying power as a rule that is going to keep me out of danger, because I have a personality that I will push things as far as they can go. And sometimes that always doesn't end with the right ending. So I'm like, okay, I got to be careful not to overdrive my car and drive it too fast so I don't get a ticket. And so I'm like, okay, I have to relate to this buying power. I've always had enough money in my accounts. I've never worried about buying power. I've always greatly undertraded them. So it's just something new for me to get a feel of. Plus it's new for me to get it within the spreadsheet. So there was like a couple days where I was starting to get outside of the range of the 35% buying power. And I'm like, well, Candy, if it's there and it's a rule, you better start managing to it. So I'm like, well, I'm comfortable with the risk, but that becomes easy to say without knowing what could happen the next day. And it's like, well, you better have a plan in place, because you're just deferring decisions, and that can be, dangerous. So I'm like, okay, I'll develop a plan of what I would do if I wasn't comfortable. So I was comfortable and I just let it be. And then in the effort to want to increase my my theta every day, I started monkeying around trying to get positions off so I can get new ones on. And I started to draw down on my theta and my deltas. And I'm like, okay, this is not optimal. And, but it was red for more than a couple days in a row. And so I keep meticulous notes on time of day and all my information in my spreadsheet. So Bobby was able to help me reframe it, because I'm like, well, maybe I'll give myself a range from like 35 to 40%. Then at 40%, I have to take action. But at some point it's red and it's telling me I have a problem. What do I do? So then Bobby's like, oh, okay, let's look at what they were and let's look at what you did. And he said, as long as 2 of 3 of your metrics are fine and your buying power is hot, then, it's fine to not have to take action on it and just idle the car, let it idle. You're burning theta, your theta is increasing, and you just don't have to worry about it. So now I have an account, one of my accounts, it's kind of like my teaser account where I get to play with it. And I'm probably going to throttle that one just a little hotter, because it's nice to be able to increase your theta every day. So one of them, I might just kind of play around with that buying power a little bit.
Yeah, and in one of her accounts, it was kind of cool because Candy was able to play with different underlyings as well. So tell us about that and how we named a new trade.
The frog. So I was trading basically 5 to 7 day short strangles on oil, gold, and bonds. And so that the way the trade setup was designed was, it's like risk on, risk off. You would not touch that trade. Once it went on, you were in it through expiration with no adjustments, regardless of how it turned out. If you were taking heat, you were taking heat. You were sitting there waiting for the trade to resolve itself and expire. And it is amazing to watch how things move, like within the last few hours of expiration. It is, but it's not always a very comfortable trade. But overall, it had been from the beginning of the year a very profitable trade. And but it's just not something that is optimal from when you're trying to reduce your risk and get off the ledge. So I'm like, okay, I've learned what the 112 is, and I did some research on other people that were trading commodities. And so I took the 112 and built a 112 in the commodities, one on the call side, one on the put side. And then I put strangles, short strangles in the middle so that it would help prop up the center, so that I had a really wide range that I could make money in. I would make money, if it went up, I'd make money if it goes down, or I'd make money. I would kind of engineer it, because now going from a 7-day trade to a 60-day trade, is a lot longer time to leave the capital out there in it. So when Bobby would look at that trade, he'd be like, wow, that's really, I see a frog, I see the ears, I see the smile. And it's an interesting trade that helps you, push the capital out there, but in a more controlled fashion.
And so if anyone wanted to do something like that, she was putting that, you can do it in crude oil, but if you want to try something smaller, she was doing it in the micro crude oil, which is /MCL, right?
Yeah, he brought me from CLs down to, he kept dialing me down.
I was like, let's see something maybe a little less risky that you could still have a little fun with, right?
Yeah. So I still had my sandbox I got to play in, but without, hopefully cutting off a limb in the process.
Let's go back again to yesterday's conclusion. So Candy normally always made, what in the world is that? Candy always made her trades normally before we would meet, and then we would talk about it. So again, when her buying power went over, she was like, okay, I got to close. I got to get down under the, 35% or lower. And she's closing things and she's putting on new trades. And it was kind of cool to then talk to her about, hey, all that meant yesterday by you going over, by a couple of percentages is that, hey, you just need to pause, right? And that, I think that was a big thing that we said, hey, when our accounts get filled up with these things, there's going to be days where you don't trade at all. And that's a new thing for you, Candy.
Yeah, totally. I'm totally fine as long as I know that I always am concerned when I'm learning something new. Did I understand it? To me, a rule is a rule. Now it's a permission, and I've given myself a window, from maybe 35% to whatever I get comfortable with, certainly 35, 40, I don't know. I don't know where my line will be, but I'm sure I'll find that out when I touch the hot stove. But now it's just a window. It's breathable, it's flexible, it's adjustable. I don't need to treat it as a hard and fast rule. It's a guideline for me.
So with Candy, she'd always been searching for something at the portfolio level. She'd already had everything she needed at the trade level, with people managing trades and taking trades off and finding trades, putting trades on. But even though we were focusing on the portfolio level of stuff, I did think it was good that we touch on some individual management of trades if need be, if the metrics were to say, hey, something needs to be done. Let's talk about maybe the frog just for a little bit, or you know, where you've got things on two sides. Let's talk a little bit about where we talked about risk reversal, taking risk off of one side, placing it somewhere else. I think that was a big help to you as well, right? On how to take an individual position in one asset and to kind of level it up.
That and you can scale in. So what I tried to create was a trade that I could sit in, you know, for 60 days that would have a good return on it, and, you know, scale it down from the CL down to the MCL. So I started with a certain size, certain capital allocation. I think I had like 55, which I went from managing a 7-day trade in oil that required about close to almost 30,000 for a week, and I dialed that down to, you know, about 5,500 for the 60-day period. But then as price moves around on it, what you can do is you can take the MCL futures to help try to, you know, like right now, oil has been in a downtrend, moving down and going to the lower end of that trade. Maybe the T0 line, though, is not accommodating what the future earnings could be. So you want to start making adjustments and shifting the risk from one side of the trade to the other. And you don't want to destroy it too much, because that trade structure is, you know, giving you the opportunity to be more delta neutral, where you don't really care what the trend is. You just need to keep it in the range and have enough theta burning in there that you're making money. But as things move around, you need to prop up that T0 line. So by shifting the risk, basically I started to add more short calls as things started to shift down. I added, put debit spreads on the downside. I noticed my my straddle, or my strangle, was not burning any time value at all. So I took that off and reallocated that capital to basically playing the downside. You could also use MCL futures and combine it with options, because the size trade, I think I would have started with a little larger trade if I was going to start adjusting it with the MCL futures. So it's playing with that trade, sizing it to where you can easily adjust it and take advantage of the opportunities as price starts moving around.
Andy, do you ever see yourself in the future trading without a spreadsheet at all, whether it's mine or yours or some combination?
Not without the metrics at all. I don't see myself ever doing that, because I did that, but only at a trade level. But to have the ability to do the speed of management, the speed of risk management, the speed of getting capital to the markets through that method, I could never do what I'm doing without that. I could never see myself going into, you know, my spreadsheet is so valuable to me. I'll see other types of trading, or this trade or that trade, and I'm like, but that doesn't fit to my spreadsheet. And I will totally reject any other type of trading that doesn't mentally, for me, fit into my spreadsheet. I've become like this spreadsheet, you know, I don't know, snob. It helps keep you focused. It gives you permission not to take dumb trades that don't fit into the spreadsheet. So it's like, why would I mess up my spreadsheet? I love it. No, I don't. Certainly, I would never trade without metrics, and hopefully I will never mess up that beautiful spreadsheet.
Awesome. I know we were yesterday like, save it. We better change to it. We're like, save it, you know, even if it was on auto save, right? We didn't want to lose it.
It'll go with me to my
So
to the end.
So the thing that was really important to me through your mentorship was that at the end is that you would have a trading plan, your guide in times of trouble, your Bible of trading, something to refer to. And we spent a lot of time going over that. And you spent an enormous amount of time putting that together. Tell us about your trading plan, your written trading plan.
So because I came out of the business world, I learned the value of what a franchise is and what it does. And before I came over to learning from this group, I was trading something I called the SPX franchise, because you had to learn to trade in all market conditions. So I would trade the SPX and I'd have predetermined levels for adjustment. And I basically had a plan that said, I'm a franchise. I have to keep the doors open all the time, regardless of the market conditions. I have to figure out how to trade it, through the rain, the sleet, the snow. So I had adjustments. One was, called the raincoat adjustment, where you were always using that analyze tab and having things prepared and planned out. So I know the value of that. And I know the value of trying to trade in all different market conditions, where some people just say, well, I can't trade right now. I don't have a setup for that. It's like, okay, well, you're not going to have enough money to keep your lights on then, and you're not going to have any new inventory, but that's fine, So my mindset is just to always try to figure out what to get done. So I know the value of having a predetermined setup in a predetermined plan, where it keeps your focus where it needs to be when you need it. So I started from the business concept, from a story. What was I trying to accomplish? Since all of this was new to me, it allowed me to kind of document the process of what I was trying to accomplish and how I needed to accomplish it. So it's got a story up front that it's in the form of a business plan that kind of keeps me with a roadmap of where I'm going, what I'm trying to accomplish. That was my overarching plan. I call that my franchise, because I want to do best practice, repeatable things with a predetermined financial outcome. And I want to repeat it and do it over and over and over. And I want to simplify it. I want to keep it simple. And I want to memorialize all of that so that I know the concepts that I'm using. There's learning that I learned about how to use something called the process of using a coach's approach to decision making, of how to focus on 7 seconds where you're only worried about the decision that you're trying to make when you need to make it. And so I've tried to memorialize all those things, of all the tools, the mental tools I'm using, the storyline, the trade setups, and then, so that's probably about 10 pages long. And then I have a unique trading plan for each of the 4 accounts I'm working with that are like addendums, or that are part of that overall business plan. So I'm there first to run a business. I'm there first to operate a franchise. Consistency, speed, clarity, fast decisions, ability to move and implement when I need to manage that capital and manage my inventory. I've got an inventory I keep up, I'm constantly, I'm selling inventory and I'm turning my inventory. And really that's all I'm doing, is like a retailer, I'm turning my inventory. And as long as I keep it focused on those things and don't focus anywhere else, I've got my roadmap, I've got my spreadsheet, I've got my business plan, I have my mentor, and I have my capital, and I have everything I need to go forward and be successful into the markets, regardless of what the markets are doing.
I've told people that I can only do one mentorship at a time. And people probably say, oh, that's not true. Tell them, if anyone was sitting there thinking, I want to go through the mentorship or they wanted to do it, kind of tell them about the time commitment, kind of tell them what we did together. What, if they wanted to, how much does the homework take? You know, a lot of people are like, I don't know if I can do that.
Well, when I started, I had other things I was focused on at the time, and I wanted to do this, and so it was a commitment for me because of the opportunity that it presented to itself. But I tend to lead a active, busy life with my family and the business, and I stay busy. So when I started, it was like, you know, Bobby and I would schedule time and he would give me an assignment, which I always looked forward to all of it. All of the learning is like, it's such an adventure and it's so exciting to go on the adventure. And it's a lot of internal soul searching and finding what you need to do. And it's not like the homework is not like reading. It's not like boring. It's like exciting stuff that applies to what you're interested in. And so for me, I started to get where I made sure that my calendar was available to Bobby when Bobby was available. So he set the time frame because he's busy. He's got a lot going on. I highly valued the time that he allotted to me. So I made sure that I was available when he was. So that made it a high quality experience for both of us because it fit into what he could do, when he could do it. And for me, I was so excited and hungry to get the learning that it was a really high quality experience. It was the highlight of my day. So for me, the homework was an
Oh, would you
adventure.
say that again? Beth, come in here and listen to what Candy said. She said the highlight of her day was being with me, Beth.
It truly, the learning was, and working with Bobby always makes it fun. You always walk away I have notes and notes, pages of notes of aha moments where I was combining some of the learning that I've done over helping other traders find who they are and help them overcome some of their limitations. I learned 25 years ago how to use a tool called Kingdomality. And so by combining the Kingdomality with the process with Bobby's spreadsheet, the learning just for me was part of the fun and the adventure. Now, not everybody sees it that way, but for me, it was truly an adventure that I value greatly. And so for when you say homework, he'd always say, well, you have homework to do. What did you do? And it was like, huh? I have homework? And it was like, oh, you know, oh, that, oh yeah, I did that. You know, here's, I never felt like it was homework because I always felt like it was an exploration of new learning and new tools that I could take to apply not only to myself personally, but to my business.
Good. Hey, does anyone got any questions for Candy at all? I'm sure she'd be happy to have them. Just match
I have two.
Yeah, awesome.
So the first question I was going to ask is, you mentioned having multiple accounts and different strategies, if you will, for each of them. I was just wondering what some of these different things were that you were doing, because to me, a lot of this seems pretty straightforward, right? Financing a put debit spread with two naked puts, managing the metrics, having the same buying power usage roughly. So I was just wondering what tweaks you were making in these other accounts that you were talking about earlier. And then I was also going to ask what some of these examples of homework would be, because we've talked a lot about that. I've seen it in the Discord. I've heard Bobby talk about it on here. And if it's not just a bunch of reading, what were some of these assignments that you really found enjoyment in?
Sure, great. So for me, customizing, so along the lines of my story, I started thinking about my accounts in the terms of a car. What kind of a car would they be? And I have two accounts that are my IRAs that are my classic cars that are like driving Miss Daisy cars. They're not to take a lot of risk in. They are so you have to remember where I started, 0 DTE and commodity trade. So I'm like, okay, I will not be trading commodities in the IRAs. And so it was setting up, am I trading the ES? Am I trading the MES? You know, am I trading short strangles? What, you know, what type of trades am I trading? What markets am I trading? What trade setups am I trading? How am I going to adjust each one of them? What metrics am I going to use for them? So a lot on the risk perspective, and I kept changing over time because I had done so well in the commodities that it took me building out multiple accounts before I was mentally willing to make the shift to move away from a large amount of capital going towards commodities. But there was a point where I hit a cross where I'm like, yeah, okay, in my larger account and in my fun account, well, I don't know that it's fun, it's called my sports car account. I've got one where I'm willing to trade it and push it faster than I am my IRA. So it's on the risk continuum. It's in the markets I trade, it's in the trade setups, it's in the adjustments. And making sure that I'm staying consistent with my risk level. You know, my big account is my daily driver. And so there I'm able to put commodity trades with my other trades because I've got the size and the scope to be able to adapt the setups to what I want to trade and the income that I want to generate. But I have to be careful in my sports car because I might overdrive that. I might drive it too fast. I might push it over, you know, the edge towards the cliff. So it's the amount of risk and setups that I control my focus. And your second question, and so does that help clarify and answer your first question?
Yes, it does. It does. Thank you.
Okay.
I didn't realize that you were still trading commodities and strangles and stuff. I thought you were primarily focused, or you'd primarily shifted over to the 1-1-2 strategy. So I was trying to figure out how you.
Bobby had to pull those out of my hands. And even once he got them out of my hands, I would go back to them. And then I'd have to pull myself off of them. And then I watched myself keep moving and moving. Bobby would say, oh, there's light in your tunnel. He's like, oh, she's coming in off that ledge. But I had to build out and get more capital in the markets before I could see the opportunity of the 1-1-2, that I really didn't need to hold that sharp knife in my hand. I could set that knife down and I could walk away and I could actually like have a life and not have to feel the burn on Fridays of what option expiration looks like. So so that was a really positive thing, but I can tell you I did not go easily, but I have definitely made that transition back in off the ledge. And the homework was self-exploration. So asking things about you. Tell me in this way about you, and what are the things that are important to you, and putting them in a format that you could present that and visualize it for yourself and document it for yourself and refer back to it. And I had an interesting epiphany recently. So one of the things was I needed to have, Bobby, am I allowed to give some of your trade secrets out about the theme?
Oh, sure.
Okay, so one of the things is he thinks that it's important to have a theme song. So I did have a theme song, and my theme song is focused at climbing and going up mountains. It's the climb. That was my theme song, the climb. Well, what I recognized in my journey much later in the mentorship was that as I tried to simplify and streamline for risk management, I realized that sometimes I would build mountains just to climb mountains, meaning I would create complexity that did not need to be there because I was mentally used to climbing mountains. And so, because, the journey is the fun. It isn't the destination, it's the journey. So I had to realize that in trading, sometimes I was building a level of complexity that really was not necessary, and it wouldn't work to my favor when I needed to shift into a risk management mode. So I saw that pattern and I made that connection from the work I had done early on in the mentorship of just sharing what my theme song was. And listening to webinars that fit a certain need of helping to shift the mindset. So it's always about shifting and advancing a mindset of giving you mental options of how to focus your mind, of what you want to be looking towards. And so it's really in support. A lot of it was really all in support of the mental shifting, managing emotions, giving yourself other things to do. Bobby, did I miss something in the?
No, and I think that's what people would think, how in the world would you cover portfolio management and doing the 1-1-2 trade 1-1-1 in 6 weeks? What did y'all talk about for an hour or so every day? And I would say over 50% of what we did was talking about our brain, right? Our emotions, the psychological impact of trading.
Yeah.
Yeah, and she handled it very, very well. Any other questions? Y'all don't be shy. Stacy said, build mountains just to climb them. Wow, that's a good life lesson right there. And it really is, right? Because we as humans do, we worry about things we shouldn't really even be worried about. Right? We do create mountains where we don't need those. All right, any other questions before we let Candy run? Well, we first got to share her. Let me show y'all her. Got to show you Candy's. Got to show her diploma. Oh, there's my Chrome circumstance. So your diploma looks like ta-da!
Oh,
How
I
about
want you to
that?
know I have my silk gown on.
Isn't that awesome?
Oh, that's great.
That
Love it.
That is your certificate of completion. So congratulations, Candy, so very much. Before I turn it off, any other questions? Let's see what the other chat was. Yeah, everybody's thanking you for sharing, and yeah, it was really, really good. So thank you so much.
I have to add one other thing. In my overall business and trading plan, I do have a portion of allocating 60 to 70% of my excess available capital to the bonds. So they're in there too.
I don't remember who taught us that.
Hats off to Ed for introducing that.
Ed works he works for Don Kaufman now, but I remember when he was with us, he was a great guy.
Oh, he'll be back, Bobby. He'll be back.
He'll be back. No. Well, he's in here today, so we're just picking it.
He'll be back.
Well, great session, y'all. Listen, we're about to have the Muscadine Mafia session coming up next. I'll post that in just a second, and I will see y'all. Congratulations again, Candy. This was wonderful.
Thank you for all your support and guidance. But I would highly encourage, if you want to take your business and trading to the next level, take advantage of the opportunity that Bobby offers. I don't think you'd be disappointed at all.
Thank you for the kind words. I appreciate it.
All right. Thank you. Everybody have a great day.